Do you not have a mic? Oh, we're gonna.
You guys are sharing a mic.
That's okay.
I thought you're all spread out. For God's sakes, like each other.
Be friendly.
In church.
I want to say every time I see CL, I say it like the Japanese, like Lizzie says it. Yeah.
Every time I see CL, I say it like Japanese Lizzie says it because I have Japanese Lizzie in my head so loudly. Okay, so yeah, Black Butler panel?
Yeah, Black Butler panel.
I directed it and I'm Bard, but you are?
Sebastian.
Oh, come on, you like Sebastian more than that. I do. Oh, thank you. Okay, so we did Black Butler how many years ago?
8.
Oh my God.
Started
8 years ago. Tell me, Michael, what is Black Butler meant to you? What is like being Sebastian like? Because for me, it was weird and life-changing because it was my first directing, and I got to meet you and actually see what a talented actor looks like, and then just spend the next 3 years trying to rip you off, and that's what I got out of it. Tell me about your experience. What has Black Butler meant to you?
I think, okay, so right out of the gate, I love playing Sebastian because he's really easy to do. Like I mean, seriously, like he doesn't really go through stuff. He's kind of like the anchor. So he pretty much is unchanging with a few, he's got a few variations here and there, but the story is about CL. So CL is the character who grows and changes and goes through the hero's journey. Sebastian's just there to smile and wink and be like, yeah, sounds too adorable. It's really easy on the voice. You know, he very seldom raises his voice or even laughs or things like that. So it's a dream to play a role that's that large because you have to go in a lot to record. But it's like, oh, my voice is going to be so easy. Like a lot of roles you go in, and there's a lot of screaming or it's not your natural voice, so it's a bit of a strain. So afterwards you drive home, and you're like, oh my God, I gotta take a vocal rest for a day or two. Sebastian, never the case. Sebastian's just like drinking honey tea.
I never thought you were a lead that I would have you for like 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
You would pull off 8-hour sessions.
Yeah, because Sebastian's an easy voice to do because he's so calm and even keeled because he knows everything and he's not worried. And which is great. It's what makes him such a good, reliable, anchor for CL. But on another note, like a story that oh, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was a kid, long before I ever dreamt of becoming a voice actor, I had a speech impediment. It was really profound, so much so that I rarely spoke. And I had a speech therapist for a number of years who was British, and so I kind of...
What was her name?
Her name was Mrs. Brit. It's almost like a character from a Dickens novel. Mrs. Brit. It was Ursulina Brit. And she was fantastically old, but she was wonderful. She was a very theatrical woman. And she had this wonderful received pronunciation voice, and so we had this conversation all the time. For 5 years, she was my speech therapist, and she was awesome. It's because of her that I got into theater, because she had ties, and she was like, oh, you should do it. You have a wonderful, presence, blah, 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 blah. And, but because of her, I kind of learned how to talk in a British accent, because that was kind of how I learned to talk, period. Because my family's all from Texas, and they're very, very, you can hear them a mile away and be like, oh, those are Texans, because my dad's like, hey, how's it going? And my mother's got this sort of Houstonian sort of like, well, it's really nice of you, but I don't know if I'd wear that. Like, so they're very, very Texas, and my brother has the same accent, and I don't. I have a very neutral sort of anchor man. They call it the mid-Atlantic accent, because I learned to speak British, and I had to sort of have it bred out of me. So it's very easy for me to fall into that. And I love it, right? And so I got to play a character when I got to sort of do that voice that helped me find my voice when I was a kid. So it was, in a way, kind of a big thank you note to the woman that helped me find my voice.
There is a weird physical reaction I still get when I hear you do Sebastian, because it's really a weird thing when we would record. As you said, it's easy on him. I wouldn't really direct him. I would suggest when he could be a little bit more sassy, and that's about the extent of my help. But it was amazing as a director to watch, because and I really felt it when we went with Book of Atlantic and Book of Circus. He goes away. I mean, he's still Michael in there. He's still got the cane. But it's Sebastian, and he'll look out at me, and I'll go, oh, hello, Bass, and he'll go, hello. And I'm like, oh, there he is. And it's weird. And hearing Brina anytime she drops into CL, it's like, there's my son. There's my little angry little boy. It's so weird hearing you do that. It's because tell me if you experience this. After a while, the voice exists outside of you. It is no longer one of your voices. It is Sebastian's voice.
Yeah.
And then that makes all the decisions about how you read a thing. All those decisions are already made because you know how Sebastian would do it. It isn't how you may possibly feel on.
Kind of. Sebastian, and I guess for me personally, and I know this is true for Brina too, she and I talk about our methods. She and I both have very, what's called a Chekhovian method, where you tend to locate characters in certain areas of your body. Like that's just where they tend to, for whatever reason, you do some work and some meditation, you're like, for some reason I'm feeling the character come from, here or over here. And so for me, Sebastian is very airy. He's up here and he's always kind of floating a few feet above. And so when I go into the voice, there's almost a physical sensation of kind of breathing him in, and then he comes out in the exhale. And which is why he tends to speak like that.
And your posture changes when you do it.
Oh yeah, you can't help your body just sort of becomes possessed by Sebastian. But that comes, I guess, in retrospect, I thought about it and I was like, well, he's a demon. And demons, at least in ancient Greek mythology, daemons were creatures of the air. They're neither good nor evil. They're deeply ambiguous creatures that are just kind of there to inspire human beings to do things. They lead human beings to their fate, whether that fate be good or bad is not their concern. That's their sort of, even if you've ever read the Golden Compass series, that's kind of what demons are. They're familiars in ancient. And I'm like, that's clearly what Sebastian is in a way. It's not the modern conception of a demon as being this evil thing that wants to just kill you and then torture you. Though Sebastian's got that side of him. He can be sinister. He's chaotic neutral. So he's very airy, and daemons were considered to be creatures of the air, something between the earth and God-like status. They were like, they had all the powers of a god, but none of the responsibility, which made them like, we can just have fun. And so they're more like genes, like a jinn in Arabic mythology. So I played with that, and I was like, so Sebastian's sort of up here, and his voice is sort of airy and light, because that's how I think you should feel. It makes him very seductive. I think if a demon came, sell me your soul, you're like, I don't know that I want to do that, because you sound like you're going to eat me. But if he's up here like this, what could I possibly do? I'm so innocent and airy and light. You can wear this, it's perfectly fine. That's how it gets you.
What's so fascinating about that for me is so Whis and Super, who is an angel, right, who has all the responsibilities of a god, but without any of the word, exactly how you just described. And I do a very similar thing when I do him, and it's up in the top, and you change your vocal patterns, and you have it all very airy, and that I'm above it all, and like, oh, look at you, you're dealing with something. That's cute.
Yeah.
I put some Sebastian, if you don't know, into Whis.
I don't mind at all.
Thank you.
I think that's wonderful.
He's the
Do you remember how much fun it was to do Book of Murder, and we were doing Jeremy?
Oh my God, I was so proud.
Because that's the voice. Because so much fun to do. So those of you that seen Book of Murder, like that's me, in both roles, with no doctoring. There's nothing. It was all just me. We'd go back and record it, which was really a lot of fun because we found a different voice, and I stood differently, and I had to deliver it differently. And Ian helped me fight. He's like, it's more military. It should be more this. So it kind of comes out much punchier. But Sebastian would say things. You can almost see him sort of conducting the air and leading his words to you.
But as Jeremy was very forward with
Jeremy comes out like this and says his words like this, and so his words when he's coming, you're like, yes, I'm talking to you, and you're like, oh, okay, yes, I'm listening, yes, sir. Like you kind of stand up because he's old, and it's like it was so much fun to do that.
We found rules that we knew that were little bits of your voice that we knew were inherently Sebastian. And for instance, we knew that at the end, since we were talking about the ends, if at the end of a line we could go, yes, then no. Because with most Sebastian lines, you can go, it'd be like, well, yes, my doll, it's your little pillow, yes. Like, a little, yes. It works after most Sebastian lines. Not a single Jeremy line could do, that's over and out. Yeah, this doesn't work.
Jeremy line should end with, quite, quite. But a lot of very hard consonants in it. Where does Bart sit for you in the voice? Because he's such a fun voice too. Where's Baldroy?
Yeah, Baldroy, I made him very scratchy and all this other stuff. It took me years to figure out.
everything I do is derivative. Every single thing I do is derivative. And this one was just me pulling up. Well, I mean, for a lot of actors, that's part of your process. I think it was McTavish in Call of Duty. That same sort of like, I suck over there. And I picked up Call of Duty after years of being in Black Butler, and I went, oh, that's where I got that voice. Oh, okay. And it was just sort of and it's evolved as I have. I rewatched season 1, and I was like, what are you doing? And then you're like, oh yeah, that's just the journey we go on, and I like where he sits now.
I was recently in, I think it was in Tampa, Florida for a convention a few months ago, and I was on a panel with the voice actor, a lovely gentleman who played, among many other things, the cat in Hocus Pocus. And I had not thought of this in a long time, because when Hocus Pocus came out, I saw it in theaters, you guys. I'm an old man. But I loved it, and I thought, and he started doing the voice for the cat, and I was like, oh my God, that's Sebastian. That's where I got that from. And I told him later, he was like, I was like, I'm sitting next to my inspiration. Like he has this huge rap sheet of roles he's played that I'm not familiar with because I don't play as many games or watch as many shows. But I knew when he was like, oh, and I was the cat in Hocus Pocus, and I was like, I'm sitting next to the cat from Hocus Pocus. But it's kind of fun how you discover like who you ripped off.
I'm literally gonna go rewatch Hocus Pocus just for that.
Yeah, he was such a lovely guy too. He was so much fun. Jason, what's Jason?
Momoa.
Jason, I want to say Marsden, but I don't. That's not. I'm blanking. Huh? Too young? Maybe Jason Marsders or something. It's like that, but
Marsders
not.
was Spike and Buffy. Marsden was Goofy's kid.
That's
Max. Yeah, he was Max.
He's also Goofy. Yeah.
Max did that voice?
Yeah.
No.
It's true. It's true.
Good for
It's really
him.
really cool people.
Good for him.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that voice out of him. I love that.
He's
I love
really
that
talented.
when you hear your friends and you're like, who's that? And they're like, that's Alejandro. And you're like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Good for him.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Black Butler. It was a good show, man. I liked it. What was your favorite season?
Book of Circus.
Yeah.
By a pretty wide margin.
Yeah.
I love the first season. I try to forget about the second one.
The dub was solid.
Oh, the dub was solid. The dub was great because
The show,
you're you, and
season
it was
was
amazing.
GT. That's how I describe it.
Yeah, it felt. And I look back on it, it doesn't feel like a Black Butler season.
Well, it's because it's not Yana. It's.
The Book of Circus is so dark and so good, and everything, like it's like a perfect summation of everything that works about that show. But I mean, my favorite standalone, I guess, is Book of Atlantic,
so good.
And not for the obvious reasons. I like it because of Lizzie. I love it. I think she's
That's the best part.
It's my favorite thing about it. Like Lizzie, like she justifies the entire franchise by being who she is, and because for the longest time she's a character like, okay, she's comic relief because she's kind of irritating. She's the ingenue, and then you're like, oh my God, no, she's the baddest ass in the room.
So much depth.
And she just has to, she feels she has to hide it because, and be pretty and dainty and annoying because she's afraid of losing who she loves. And that's such a tragic story and such a relevant one that I was like, holy crap, yeah, I like it. I mean, it's great to see Sebastian half shirtless fighting zombies. I'm not gonna say no to that, but Lizzie's story is like the heart and soul of that whole OVA.
Never hide how badass you are for another person. Just don't.
Never.
They'll like you more. In general.
And if they don't,
then why would you
screw
want to be around somebody who's like, oh, there's this badass thing. I don't like it. See,
right.
just
I don't
keep
like
it-
you, I'm threatened by you.
Oh. Support people. It's wonderful. We can take questions. if
Let's
you'd
take
like.
questions. Ken, do you want to take the mic around? It's hard to hear people in this room because there's...
Well, okay, can you hear me?
Okay, then you're fine. I was kidding. I love your hat.
Thanks. Some guy bought it for me. All right, who has
An
questions?
amazing taste in hats. Not so much French, but
Be
hats.
like your Twitter handle.
Amazing taste in hats.
Writer, amazing.
Haberdasher.
Hi, was it different working on Book of Atlantic compared to working on the other seasons just because it was a movie rather than a TV show? Like, was it different working on that?
It was a 2-week commitment instead of a 6-month commitment. Like, we just burned through it as quickly as we could.
Other than that, though, the process is exactly the same. You come in for X amount of hours, and then you recorded in the same booth, you know. And we're like, oh, it kind of felt weird because it was suddenly done. We're like, oh, it's done. We haven't been working on it for 4 months. Oh.
So we only have 3 sessions? Okay.
Yeah, it was weird, but yeah, other than that, it was pretty much the same. It was really cool getting to see it on the big screen. It's not often that it happens that you get to hear yourself on the big screen, and so they were showing it. They showed it at a theater near where I lived at the time, and so I bought tickets and kind of snuck in and was hearing it going, God, it was so good. The big screen, the mix was so good, and I was like, this is cool. It's very gratifying to hear everything on the big screen. I'm like, yeah, it's you up there. And they did like there was a girl dressed as CL in the ball dress, and they were doing like a little raffle after the movie, and we just kind of sat and stayed, but like no one knew we were there, and because we were just like totally being ninjas about it. And she went down to like claim her raffle ticket gift or whatever that she wanted. She came back and she had to pass through. She had to pass by me, and I had to move. And she was like, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. Oh my God. And I just pulled up Bill Murray. I was like, and she was like, can I get a picture? I'm like, yeah. And she went down, and everyone was like, who's that? No, it's gone. She kept our secret. It was great. It was really fun to see yourself or to hear yourself rather on the big screen, especially when it all comes together. Because it's different for you. You're the director, so of course you see the finished product. You know, you see the whole thing as you're working on it. But the actors, we only have access to the scenes we're in. And sometimes we don't get to hear the finished product because the other actors in that scene aren't recorded yet. So our relationship to the material is very piecemeal. But when you finally see it all put together, you're like, oh, that sounds so great, oh my God, Brita sounds so good in that scene, I hadn't heard her yet, that kind of thing. And so it's really fun to see it all come together. And it's not often you get to do it in a big theater with a bunch of people that you're reacting to it in real time, and you're like, they love us, they love us. Yeah.
Besides, the only actual on-the-ground difference was that some of the people had moved, and I had to record them over patch. Literally, that's it. Jeremy is in LA now, so we did all that Lizzie stuff over patch. I was very proud of her. She did really good.
Raise your hands up.
Hi.
Hi.
So, it's like, I made it, surprise. But jumping off of the audience reaction, because you don't get to have somebody on the other side of anything that you do, is that preferable? Do you like it better with having someone else there, or is it better do you like it better to not have anyone and just radio silence?
If they love it, I prefer it. If they don't, then I'm like, I wish I'd never seen it. It's really hard to watch anything I've done even alone, and with other people, I'm just kind of like, it's not that I'm embarrassed, but there's a kind of level of oh, I don't know that the actors, I don't know if I did good, and they like it or whatever. I hope they love it. You're vulnerable because you're kind of at the mercy of someone who's vested, but not in the same way you are in something, and so you're kind of waiting to see if you did right by them and watching their reactions. It's similar when when I'm ever being directed by Ian. Ian acts like all he does is just, oh, I've made a suggestion, but Ian's a hell of a director, and I respect him so much as a director because he's very much an actor's director, which is not always the case in this business. Most directors are very results-oriented, so they give you very results-oriented directions, which are fine, it's the job, but your job as an actor is to kind of, there's an added layer of difficulty when someone says, cool, give another take, but be angrier. Well, okay, how do I be angrier? You have to kind of, there's an added layer because when you are given what I like to call a results-oriented direction, you have to then kind of spend a little mental energy going, how do I get there? But Ian will get you there. He bypasses that barrier and goes you know what, I think we need to come back in, and I think we need to explore the fact that maybe Sebastian doesn't like that tone of voice. And I'm like, oh, that's a much better direction because it puts me in a state of mind that I'm there without having to waste calories on thinking, how do I get there? We can move faster and much smoother. So I would do a line and I would always just wait to hear either silence as he's thinking of how to give me a different direction because that's not quite what he wanted, or I hear, there it is.
There it is.
When he says, there it is, my heart just grows 2 sizes too big that day. Yeah, it's awesome. It's wonderful.
I'd say for the movie theater, I have experienced something weird from the director point of view. So you'll go and watch the movie, and say, Sebastian's first entrance happens. And that first entrance he walks on, he says this line that we tweaked and we made it perfect. And so it's just this amazing thing. But the second he walks on in a movie theater, it's just, so all of that dub is just lost. And as a director, you sit there
You're like, wait, can we rewind that? I want you guys to listen.
Yeah, you hear when he did it? No. And then like there's so many, and anytime like Grell walks on, and so you're just kind of like, okay, the next 5 lines are just scrubbed, and I know that he was giving some real important exposition, but okay, screaming's good. And then there's a bunch of stuff that you're like, everybody freaked out over that moment? Really? Like there's like 5 minutes of somebody like crying their heart, but no, him wearing a funny hat, that's great. Sure. And so it's weird, and because you're there as the director and actor just thinking like, how good is this dub? How good is the dub? And then there's this screaming, and so it's a weird feeling, because you're also like, I mean, yeah, I hope you all love it, but it's weird. It's just weird. It's just a bunch of screaming.
You never know what an audience is going to react to, and you're like, oh, they seem to love it, but I didn't know they'd love that part. I thought they'd love that. Okay, you're like, all right, taking notes.
Sure.
Note number 1, make sure every first line a character has is really loud, so they can hear it over their screaming. Yeah, it's an unusual experience watching what you've done in front of an audience of people, because you're like, oh. If you know, because it's hard. It's similar to doing a live performance, with the major difference being that when you're on stage doing a live performance, you can kind of read the room as you go and feed off that energy and kind of make adjustments as you go forward based on, oh, okay, I'm not grabbing them. Okay, well then let's try this tack, and then. But when you're watching a movie, it's done. There's nothing you can do about that line. That line is now as it is forever. And so it's like, okay, and audiences are a little, in my experience, audiences are less forgiving for movies, for finished products, because I guess whether you realize it or not as an audience, I think you unconsciously know that live performance is hard because anything can happen. It's as close to real life as fiction can be in real time. So you're also kind of nervous for the actors on stage, so you're kind of on their side. You know, you paid your money and you're like, as long as you don't completely fall flat on your face, I'm with you. And so they can make it, you know, your audiences are more giving to live performers. When they're watching a movie, like you're watching, like, this is a distillation of months of work, or in our case, weeks of work. You know, like, you had so many opportunities, like, this is the best. It's like, you know, giving someone a homework assignment that you've got 6 months to write this essay, and they turn in like something that's made on a paper plate with elbow macaroni and glitter. And you go, you had 6 months. You know, versus like, hey, get up and you know, improvise a monologue for me right now. You'll be more forgiving. So audiences are tougher on films, on finished, on produced stuff than they are with live action. Because live action, there's the energy, like, oh, do well, I'm with you right here. Oh, don't look at me, you know, kind of thing. But in film, you're just kind of like, you had like so many takes, you know. So audiences are far harsher, and so sitting with them while watching a movie here, and you're like, they're not going to pull any punches. They're not. They're instantly going to be like, no, I paid my $10 or my $15 or however much it is to go to like an Alamo Draft House, and you're like, I hope they like it, because if they don't, I'm just going to sneak out the back and pretend I never saw it.
But so you know about the anime community, that is exactly how you will feel every time you do on-camera live action film movies. And you are exactly like that with the anime ones, but in my experience, and maybe you felt this lately, I feel they're really kinder than if you're going to like an independent film that you put out. That one you're just gonna sit there and be like, oh my god, I hope they laugh. At least y'all are going, there's Grell, there's Sebastian, and are there wanting to, they're rooting for you a little harder with anime.
And I think it's because they already have a relationship with these characters. Yeah. Before we even came into the mix, they already knew these characters and wanted them, and they're like, oh, you're playing them cool, don't screw it up. Yeah. And as long as you don't screw it up, as long as you're not the interloper, you know, they're on your side. And so, yeah, so your job as an actor is to just come in and honor the relationship the audience already has with the material, but for something that's brand new, you have to sell the audience on something they don't have a relationship with yet, and so that is harder. Yeah, I've never thought about that.
Yeah, I've always walked away going, that went well. I've never walked away from one of those movie things they're gonna kill me. I'm gonna pretend like I was somebody else. No, like everybody's just been really like, but I mean, I'm spoiled because it's like, I mean, mine are what, One Piece and Black Butler and My Hero like premieres and stuff. Everybody likes those. So.
And it was a movie that was like,
it's a good movie.
It's a good movie, and it's from a franchise that everyone. So presumably everyone sitting in the theater already loves us. you know, because we've been doing this for 8 years. And
Yeah,
so
who would go, like hate the dub and go, everything that they do is wrong, that voice is wrong, Sebastian is wrong. Oh, I'm going to that dub premiere though. I'm going to be front row center.
Well, but in the theater world, there are people that will show up with like tomatoes. I'm like, who shows up with tomatoes? Just in case it's bad. I'm going to bring my little crate of rotten tomatoes to throw.
It costs money.
People used to do that.
That's where Rotten Tomatoes comes from, kids.
Yeah. They used to throw rotten tomatoes and eggs and just old like trash at the stage if you were bad, like while you were performing.
All right, raise your hands for another question. Thank you for that. Also, I can confirm your theory about movie premieres, especially in the United States, because I saw the My Hero Academia movie on opening night, and I heard about 60% of it, and the rest of it was like,
Right? Because every time anybody...
or like two guys on the stage, and they'd be like, kiss! And it's like, that's not how it works, honey.
It's more like watching Rocky Horror Picture Show now.
Yeah, exactly.
That's an event that you get to go to. You get to go to that premiere and have that experience and then go home and buy it.
And actually watch it with a fine-tooth comb, but like
Quietly, like
just there,
rewinding every 3 seconds.
It's more like going to a concert.
Yeah.
Hi. Sorry, I'm a huge fan.
How dare you? What are you apologizing
Why
for?
would you meet with it?
Sorry, I'm a huge fan. Oh, she's a fan. Apology accepted.
Here, the panel.
Sorry.
Breathe. Speak through the nerves, darling. We're nervous too. No worries. You can breathe. You can breathe. I promise. You do it every day.
What kind of got both of you into voicing? I know you were talking about how your speech impediment therapist person was kind of linked to some kind of theater, but what was that, like stage theater, and then through that went to voice acting, or just kind of started voice acting in general?
So Ian and I both, come from a pretty intense stage background. Most actors start there because that's the only way to act in a small town. You know, like, oh, I'll go out for community theater or for high school plays. And so I started on stage because that's my speech therapist had ties to the stage, and like, you should go, you should do that. Once I found my voice, she was like, you should do it, so I did. My first role was as the rocking horse in Velveteen the Velvet, an all-children production of the Velveteen Rabbit. And I had this great monologue. I was like, cool. So my first show, I got a nice, juicy, like heart-rending monologue, and I loved it. And so I pursued it for a long time. I didn't find voice acting so much as voice acting kind of found me, and that's the case with a lot of us. I mean, it's a weird niche industry, so just about every actor, every voice actor you talk to found their own unique way into it, or like followed their own weird path. I actually got away from acting for a long time because it was just not viable for me, and I pursued a whole other career path and kind of let go of my dreams of making a living as an actor, because I just thought, I don't have, I was going through a weird time where I just didn't have a lot of confidence in myself. It was shocking, and because I was in my early 20s. And then, a guy I knew, I've been friends with for several years, who happened to work for a studio, was kind of like, hey, you want to audition for this voice role? Because you have an acting background. And so I said, after a lot of convincing, I did it. And then I suddenly like, oh, I have a knack for this voice acting thing, and I like it. Had I started as a voice actor with no experience acting, I don't think I would have been nearly as successful. Voice acting is really, and I realize me saying this sounds self-serving, but I believe it to be true, and Ian, feel free to jump in and correct me, but I think voice acting is one of the most validating types of acting because you're not limited by your appearance. So you can explore your range as an actor more than any other form of acting. In film and stage, you are limited by your age, your gender, your height, the shape of your face, especially in film. In film, like if I went out for film roles, there's about 5 types of roles I would always be cast in, and I would never get to play other roles because I don't have the look. Similar, there's a little more elbow room in stage, but not that much more. But on voice, if you can do the voice, they don't care what you look like, how old you are, or even if you're wearing pants. So you get to explore your range as an actor, and it's awesome. But foundation on like the fundamentals of acting and how to kind of, Sandy Meisner is an acting teacher, famous acting teacher that I love. The philosophy of he defined acting as living truthfully in imaginary circumstances. When you are on, it's a great way to put it, because that's my job, is to just be real in this fictional situation. And because when voice acting, I think I would have been utterly lost. Starting voice acting, it's like, I compare it often to being like being an actor that goes into voice acting, which is the way it should, like being a stage actor that starts there and eventually finds your way into something like voice acting, it's like being a master carpenter. So you get your 10,000 hours of mastery in, and now you can build anything, and someone hires you and says, awesome, here's your challenge, just build me a house, and you only get to use a hammer. Because when you're a voice actor, it's like a lot of people who here, let me see a quick show of hands, who here actually wants to or dreams about being a voice actor? There's usually a few hands come up. Now, that's cool, and I know we're flattered by that, but you have to really be honest with yourself. Do you want to be a voice actor because you really want to be an actor and you're just not comfortable with the things you would have to face in order to be an actor? Like maybe you don't like the way you look, maybe you're nervous in front of a crowd, and you feel like voice acting is a way to kind of satisfy the acting bug without having to face the things about the craft that terrify you. That's the absolute wrong way to go about it. You're doing yourself a disservice. Because when you get in that booth, you will have nothing to draw upon and you'll be lost. Because voice actors, directors aren't there to teach you how to act. Script writers aren't there to teach you how to act. They're not there to teach you how to be present and how to lead and how to just, go with the punches and work in difficult situations with very little input. So you have to go, you have to face that fear. Take a workshop. That's also acting as a very social art. I'm a big believer that you can't become an actor by just looking at yourself in the mirror and delivering lines to yourself. It's not how it works. Acting is reacting until you learn how to react to what's in front of you. And you can't begin to learn how to imagine doing that because the imaginative part of acting is so prevalent in voice acting because you have to imagine everything, including your scene partner's voice, because they're often not recorded yet. So you have to learn how to make it so vivid and real for you that you are responding to something that might as well be right in front of you, because it's not actually. So I forget what the question is.
How we got in there.
Yeah. I got into it because I've been an actor for a long time, turned my back on it because it was hard to make a living at, and then a friend of mine was like, you want to try voice acting? And it was a hard road because at first it made no sense to me. What was your journey?
I did theater in high school because I liked being on stage. I liked playing music, and I wasn't that good at it, but I liked being on stage, so I went, okay, I'll do some theater. And then I was pretty good at it. And I did a little one-act play in college, and the head of the department said, you're going to be an actor, right? I go, oh, actually, I was thinking you're going to be an actor, right? And I go, oh, okay. And then I just was a theater major, and I just did theater. I had a fellow classmate say, hey man, you want to come watch me work? I work at a place that does a little thing called Dragon Ball. You ever heard of it? And I'm like, yeah, bro. And so I went and watched him, and if I haven't told you this, Sabat was the one directing, and he just turns around and goes, you want to say a line? To a kid on a tour.
Yeah, I know that.
And then 6 months, and that was all I said, is the word yes sir, and then 6 episodes later that guy came back, and so they had to give me a contract. And I just kind of lived in the area, and I just worked there, so it's been the job I've had since college. It's something where you do have to have other jobs, but then my other job for 6-8 years after college was I just did professional theater. And in Dallas you can do that. It's the third biggest theater city in America. It's wonderful, and so that's what I was doing. It's a lot of fun. But I liked sunsets and dinners and being able to be social with my friends. So because after you do 6-8 years of theater, you never go out for dinner. And anytime your friends are like, hey man, let's go to a movie, you're like, oh, is it after 7 o'clock on any day of the week besides Monday? Can't do it, dude. Sorry. And so I stopped doing that, and I started doing a lot more commercial work, and this is what I am. It's in a weird way, you just kind of wake up after a decade or two of it, and you go, well, this is who I am. This is what I've done.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I got into it, and I liked it. I love anime, I love cartoons, I love, it's still the majority of what I watch when I go home. I looked into it. And the one thing that I would say that has changed from what you've said, and it's only very slight, is that in the last 2 years, now there are people who are now voice actors for anime, specifically because that's all they've ever wanted. That has only happened in the last year or two because of simuldubs. Any of the old guard were all actors doing other things that this is one of their jobs, and then they act fully. Weirdly, only in the last couple of years, now I do say I know a couple people who this is all they want to do, and this is all. And I'll tell you now, they have to have other jobs, and they still work at Walmart. But They got.
Can't make a living as an actor.
Just understand that if you want to be an actor in general, the biggest thing that I can tell you is save money. And I know that sounds like your dad, and I know that sounds stupid. I was the voice of a fast food chain and a casino for my 20s, and I saved all of it. I lived like a college student until I was in my early 30s. It's the best thing I did as an actor, because sometimes you'll go like 6 months and, like, not without any work, but like you can go months. There was, during last season, because they cycle on and off, there were multiple weeks where literally the only source of income I had was 15 minutes of work at Funimation in a week. That's not something that you can just live off of, so you have to learn to save money. And so if you do want to be an actor out there, y'all are all pretty young from what I see. Start now, just saving money. Then acting is something, but I know that's just the lamest response and so freaking dry.
No,
for God's sake, save money.
It's something people don't talk about because the reality of the business is very different than most people know. Another reason I insist on being an actor in general is because it allows you to cast your net widely, so that if you're not getting voice work, then you can go out for stage work or try film work. You get an agent that can put you, I mean, the more you can do, the more you will get to do. And so you talk about the people now, the generation coming in that have only voice acted. They're really good at what they do, but they struggle to make ends meet because that's all they can do. They don't have experience on stage or know how to approach that, or they're not pursuing on-camera work, and so they still have to have their job, their day job, which of course makes it difficult to work around their schedule when they're needed for a simul-dub, because a simul-dub, you know, you might go in for 1 week and they may need you for 2 hours, and that's fine with your day job. They're like, yeah, we can lose you for 2 hours, that's fine. But if suddenly the next week they need you for 14 hours, that's suddenly a different thing. So for them, they have to spin a lot of plates just to make rent, and it's because they're too hyper, in my opinion, it's because they're too hyper-focused on one kind of acting. It's like being a creative person in general, be it a writer, a painter, a filmmaker, a recording artist, an actor. Like, you have to understand, those are the jobs everybody wants. Everybody wants those jobs, and the studios know it. So they have their pick. Actors don't get to pick what we work on. We have to. Your job in any kind of acting is basically like 99% of the job is interviewing for the job. It's what auditions are. And even Ian and myself, as established as we are, as old guard as we are, we still, we audition. We might get one job out of every 100 things we audition for. And I don't mean to make it sound very bleak, but if we were only capable of auditioning for one kind of thing, the ratio would be more like I'd get one job out of 1,000, and it's impossible to live off of it. When you look at the hourly rate of what an actor tends to make, it looks pretty good. When you look at the hours, it's not so good. Because, hey, yeah, $100 an hour, if that were the case, like, that's pretty good. Oh, it's not a 40-hour-a-week job. It's a 2-hour-a-week job. So that's $200 a week. Yeah, good luck making rent and gas and food and clothing for that. Like, and you have to have another job. So the bottom line is, if you want to be an actor, if you want to be a voice actor, be an actor, because and voice acting, in my opinion, should only ever be one of the many things you do. Because it's impossible to make a living, or damn near impossible to make a living as a voice actor otherwise.
So if you want to, it is a life. Just remember 2 things: diversify as an actor, be able to do a lot of stuff, and save money. Like, and if that sounds like an appealing life, come play.
Yeah. Who doesn't want to be an actor anymore?
All right, I saw that hand shoot up immediately.
Oh, never choose a grill. Never choose a grill.
All right, so.
Hello. So everyone has had very insightful and beautiful questions.
I'm not kissing you.
I just got out of a relationship. I'm not ready yet. But I've already heard the story a billion times on YouTube.
Is it the pantsless one?
Oh no,
Okay,
but I would like to hear that too.
Is it the nun scene one?
Oh yes, the nun
Yeah, the nun
scene.
scene. It's always
Please
one of the few.
justify how you always cheat on me.
So may I ask you why you want to hear it again?
I want to hear it in person.
What are you getting out of this?
Happiness.
How?
And here's my question. Nun scene as compared to the scene with Beast? I would say the Beast scene is
So much more risque.
far more risky.
Like the nun scene is like 2 seconds.
It's-
But like,
yeah,
like the house is shaking.
He's like literally molesting
These are under 18.
Under 18.
But yeah.
You tell the story, Ian. I'm tired of telling it.
Keep it under 18. Why don't you tell the story? You've heard it a bunch.
Yeah, now who's on the spot?
Because it's always more fun to hear what they think it
I
is.
want to hear, like, so I can debunk it. Like,
Yeah,
that's not
well-
what happened. I didn't actually
This
get
is
naked.
coming from a theater student, you know this, right?
I do now.
So there he was in the booth, doing the nun scene, and he's doing it. And he was told to do it again because it didn't sound realistic. Maybe hump the mic. And so he did, doing the scene. With the lights off, may I mind you?
Okay, lights were
Yeah, but
off.
the lights are always off.
No. The mic was a good like 3-4 feet in front of him. He was braced on the other side.
Yeah, you can't be like hitting the mic.
Oh no, that would make sound.
Yeah, that would make sound. You
Hearing
can't.
like dialogue with this.
Engineer would kill you. I am sorry for hitting your mic, by the way.
It's like
Shut up. But yeah. See, I always think the pantsless one's funnier because I don't even, because I hear it third person, because in the story I didn't see it. He did a scene where apparently he dropped Pound was in underwear because I wasn't paying enough attention, and then
No, it's not because you weren't paying attention. You were so focused on the monitor that you weren't looking at me, and that's your job. And I was
Yeah,
like,
it's
I
true.
want to see how well you're doing your job, and he was doing it amazingly well. So I just slowly but surely, over the course of multiple lines, just took my pants off, and had my boxers on. I mean, I wasn't naked from the waist down. I had a nice pair of boxers on. They were like silk skull and crossbones. They seemed appropriate. And I was like, and Kevin Leisure, the engineer, could see me. His line of sight was that he was tall, and he was always kind of like just kind of looking, keeping one eye on me in the booth, making sure I'm not like humping microphone stands, I guess. And Ian was like really intensely focused on the monitor, so I only see the top of Ian's head, and he wasn't really looking my direction because you tend not to want to look at me when I'm recording because you want to see me as Sebastian. So like, I don't want to see Tatum, I want to see Sebastian. And that's just how he is as a director, and it's perfectly appropriate. But I was like, I want to see if he'll ever like look up just once. And so my challenge was to make sure Kevin didn't give it away because we're like in the middle of a scene, and he'd be like, yeah, so. I'd be like, shh. Don't tell. And he's like, oh, let's do one more. And I kept doing it and kept doing it. I actually left too to go to the bathroom at some point after like an hour. I was just standing there in my boxers and my shirt. I was like, can we take a break? Yeah, let's take a break. And I went like down the hall and back with my boxers on. And Mike McFarlane was like, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, we're recording back with Mike Butler. And he's like,
I love that story because I heard it third person. I was like, oh, I didn't see you. And you're like, no, you didn't. And I hear that at cons from other people, which is why it's one of my favorite Mike Butler stories. What time do we go to?
You go till 3, you have 16 minutes left.
Cool, give me a 10-minute warning, right?
Copy.
you look amazing, by the way. So do you,
Thank
Greta.
you.
I love your dress.
Thank you. Is there a specific episode that you thought was more challenging than others to do with your voice?
No, with Sebastian, because his voice is pretty much.
That was the most challenge you had, Jeremy.
Yeah, it was that. Yeah, that's a good point. But it was a fun challenge, and it wasn't really. It was also so right around that time that we started recording Book of Murder. Christopher Lee had passed away, and Christopher Lee was a huge influence on me. I never got the chance to meet him, sadly. I wish I had. Aaron Dismuke met him. Like, yeah. Aaron just, oh yeah, you're Sarah Ma. He's like, oh yes, whatever. But I loved Christopher Lee. Like his voice was like, I just loved him. I grew up watching a lot of the Hammer horror movies that he was in, like Dracula and all that. And then when he became like Saruman in Lord of the Rings, I was like, Christopher Lee! And so he had an amazing life, that guy. Look him up sometimes. Like his acting is the least interesting thing he did. And that's saying something. Like he had a just crazy eventful life. And I'm like, that's a life well lived. So when he died, I was affected by it, and we had the chance to create this character voice. And I was like, I kind of want to do a nod to Christopher Lee. And so it was a challenge because I was holding myself to this, like I want to do something that Christopher Lee could be like, oh, it will go quite good. And but who cares? He wouldn't have cared because he's dead. but well, I mean, presumably he's got better things to do now than watch me, some actor in the booth, pretend to be him. But it was really kind of nice to get to play with that and be like, oh, I know exactly what I want to do. And the more exacting your goal, the more challenging it is. But we had fun, and Ian was so instrumental in getting me there because he just kind of dissected, and then it got to the point where it was a ball.
Good, fun.
Bard has become one of the easiest things in the world for me to do, especially if I'm self-directing, because I have then watched that movie like 80 times, and I have to remember the like 5 lines that Bard has, and I just kind of go in there. Literally, I think Book of Atlantic, I just went, roll, and just go from one of my cues to my next cues. I've got them all listed up here. I don't need to know what just happened. I know what just happened. And we knocked out the entirety of Book of Atlantic in like 5 minutes. I was like, blah, 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 blah. Good. Yeah, Bard's weird and easy for me. When I get drunk at Renfest, I sound like Bard. Oh yeah, no, I run around Renfest, my girlfriend just head in hand, and I'm like, I want to get to talking like it seems is gonna be great. The fire whip's over there. Come on, darling. Don't be afraid. Come on. This one's mine.
This is true. I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
It's glorious.
A certain amount of meat, Bard cook.
And you're a hell of a chef, though, too. Like in real life.
Unlike Bard, yeah. Yeah, I like to. Try to. Next question.
Next question.
The one in the awesome Sosuke jacket. Is it Sosuke? Yes. Okay, yeah, you know.
I don't need that. I am not shy at all. My
Damn.
parents wish that I was, but I'm not. So, do either of you read the manga?
I did.
No.
No?
I don't like reading the manga because I don't want to know what's coming down the wire. I want it to be fresh for me, so I keep...
Without spoilers, I will tell you though that the way that you described Sebastian's relationship though, being like a genie, that's spot on. Because when he contracts with CL, he tells him that he's going to give him 3 wishes. But since he does, are you all caught up?
I'm not. I'm not currently.
Okay, well,
I'm trying to catch up on Super and like my Golden Kamuy.
well,
Double decker.
If you do, you will have like the down the rabbit hole, Alice tumbling after effect.
I like that.
Because right now we don't know what's going on, and I cannot wait for this to hopefully be closed so that you guys can love it.
I'm a few books. What book should I jump back in on?
Let's see, we're on chapter 145 right now.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah, I have a whole shelf in my house.
I will only ever go back and read the manga after, like, if ever, like, a show comes, an episode or, excuse me, a season comes down to the wire and it is absolutely, like, the end. Like, there's no more. I only ever go back and do research
Okay, well, you're gonna,
afterwards.
You will flip because I cannot wait for her. This is the final arc. So this is it. And then hopefully you guys will be able to double.
God, thanks for telling me my dog's dying, man.
But I have, you know, I have the Samazuka thing going on here.
Yeah, no, you got that. I appreciate that. My poor baby boy. He's gonna get eaten. No, I mean, good. I mean, it needs finality and all, but like.
That's what I'm saying though. It's like Alice not like going down because there's a loophole. There's a loophole now.
Of course there's a loophole.
It's always a
Don't tell me.
Yeah.
Don't tell
No,
me.
and I don't want you to tell him. Really, the fun thing about directing him within it is that he understands Sebastian at a really deep level that it's amazing to watch when it happens, and the choices you make while living in the moment in your Meisner way, they've all been absolutely correct, and so leading him through that and being like, okay, this just happened. I get to watch him in the booth physically. He said that, and you're like, yeah, and just and you watch that physical, that emotion live in his body, and then it comes out through even. And if I took away that kind of surprise, there would possibly be things like jaw tension that would never happen, and that little jaw tension would belie an emotion that, like, the savvy listener would go, "Oh, he's actually really pissed about that," and like stuff like that. So I don't let a lot of my actors. Actually, Brina Palencia will watch ahead, but she has had sit-downs with me like, "Don't stop it," and I'll be like, "Yeah, but you gotta understand." And then CL does this, she's like, "Stop, just let me live it." So.
Exactly. So here's the reason why. Like, to some of you, it may sound like we just are lazy and don't want to do our research, but that's not the case at all. Because when I'm writing a show or directing one, like Ian, we do all the research. Like, I will know that show up, down, backwards, forwards, retrograde, all of it, because that's the job. When you're an actor, your job is to deliver the lines you're given from as truthful a place as possible. And if you know what's coming when the character should not, then instead of acting, you're now pretending. And the difference is this: acting comes from the body. If I suddenly sit here and go, "Hey!" you all freak out. You feel the surge of energy, and then you have a thought. Usually like, the fuck is he doing? But that's when I say acting is reacting, that's the difference. You can't think your way through performance. If I know what the scene is, all I'm doing as an actor is giving myself boxes to check. Okay, I should be mad here. I should inflect this word here. And it's me spinning a bunch of plates. And the best thing I can do is pretend that I'm in the moment, but I'm not. It's pretend. It's different. Acting is like I'm just being present with it and seeing what comes up. Here's the thing I've learned, and I don't mean to be like acting is, but my philosophy of acting boils down to there is no wrong emotional state for the scene you're in as long as it's real for you. Even if it seems to contradict the text or what the writer might have been going for, it creates depth. Let's say the line you're given, and it could be any character in any show, live action or otherwise, it could be the line is, I hate you, leave me alone, I never want to see you again. And reading it from the outside, your first instinct, your first thought would be like, oh, he's angry. Then you tell yourself as an actor, I'm going to deliver the line, I'm going to be angry. I'm going to be angry. You can't be angry by telling it. Anger is a word we give to an emotion in retrospect. Anger, it actually covers a whole range of emotional responses that we just kind of define loosely as anger. So it doesn't come from, you can't play anger. You're either angry or not. And so my first instinct was like, I'm going to say the line like, I hate you, leave me alone, I never want to see you again. You can tell that I'm acting. But if instead, let's say he and I are scene partners in this moment, and he's the one I'm saying it to, which I would never say that in real life, but if we were partners on stage and that was the line, we have to serve the text. I can't just make things up. That's not the job. But I have to commit to that line and whatever I'm feeling. And let's say Ian does something that makes me laugh, or makes me giggle, and makes me kind of go, what did you just do? And so now I say the line, I hate you, leave me, I never want to see you again. It might make you go, that's weird that he made that choice, but because it's real for me, it cannot help but be real for you, and it creates depth, because it's not an obvious choice. Actors can only make those choices if we're free to just be in the moment and experience it as it's happening to the character, rather than map it out ahead of time so we can give ourselves a bunch of boxes to check. It's probably two ways of acting. There's being present in the moment and just go rolling with whatever comes, and committing to whatever comes up, or there's mapping it out and determining everything, and for my money, the other acting is what audiences respond to. Because it's like when you're watching a live performance, if you've ever seen an animal on stage during a production, man, it doesn't matter what that animal is, it could be a cat, it could be a sheepdog, it could be a horse, you are paying attention to that animal. Why? Because that animal is not bullshitting you. That animal is not pretending to be anything. That animal is what it is, and it has no choice. It is absolutely present and responding to everything. Like I've been on stage with a cat before, and like delivering, just acting to pieces, and people keep checking in on that cat. And if the cat gets up and stretches, you're dead. You can't compete with that, because there is nothing more real on that stage than that cat. So my philosophy of acting, even in the booth as an actor, when it's as artificial as it can be for an actor because of the situation, because of the reality of the booth and not having other actors to work off of, like, you have to be present or you're dead, and it sounds fake. And audiences can tell. Even if they don't know it, they'll be like, that seemed like a weird choice. You can hear you can see the strings. You should never be able to see the strings. And if it's real, even if it seems to be contradicting the text, you'll accept it. You'll make sense of it. You'll justify it in your head, because the human mind is riveted to what's real.
Good.
Yeah?
On that note, actually, because we got, 5 or something like that? Do a little lightning round out at the end, just because it's a fun way to leave it. On that note of don't tell the actors, all of the circus folk in Black Butler Book of Circus, I told them that they were the good guys of the show. Yeah, it wasn't until they died, and then on the drive home, I explained it to him. I was like, hey, what do you think Black Butler's about? He's like, well, this group of circus people, and these, guys show up, and I'm like, no, y'all were the bad guys. What? Yeah.
That sounds funny to you guys, but the truth is, every character in every show, regardless of where they fit in the dynamic from the audience's perspective, every character is the main character in their own story. Mm-hmm. And they have to approach it like that. Nobody is consciously the bad guy. Even bad guys think they're just the misunderstood hero.
And bad guy is bad. It's not interesting. So, we got only a few more minutes. This is how I like to end my panels. If we could not film this part, we can be even more honest. But what I would like to do is have a quick lightning round where you ask us the weirdest questions you can think of. It's got to be something we can answer in 1 or 2 words, because that way, we can get to as many people as possible. The example I always like, you have to ask quickly. The example I always like to give is, if you had a magical unicorn, what flavor ice cream would it poop?
Cookies and cream.
Ooh, rainbow sherbet for me. Okay, so once we don't, please use your hands, project. Once we don't see any more hands, you're not going to be able to get to everybody for a lightning round, so don't even worry about using the microphone. Just have them shout. Cool, so get it out as quickly as possible. Thank you back there with the recording to turn that off if you could. Much appreciated.